The bailiff called the case like he was reading a grocery list, and my sister stood up before the last syllable landed. Not because she was eager to honor my grandfather, because she was eager to claim him. She wore a tailored cream coat over black, the kind of quiet luxury that makes people assume you're right before you speak. Her hair was perfect. Her face was dry. And when she looked at me, it wasn't grief in her eyes. It was calculation. Her attorney, slick suit, soft voice, expensive watch, walked to counsel table with a thin stack of papers and slid them forward like a blade. "Your Honor," he said, "we're moving for immediate transfer of the estate to my client, effective today." My parents nodded in unison behind him, like they'd practiced it in the mirror. My mother's hands were folded, solemn, as if she was in church, and my father stared straight ahead, jaw set, like this was a business meeting and I was the obstacle. The judge didn't look at them at first. He looked at me. "Ms. Vale," he said, voice flat. "Do you object?" My sister's lips twitched like she couldn't wait to hear me beg. I didn't. I sat up straighter, placed my hands on the table, and made sure my voice didn't shake. "Yes," I said. "I object." Her attorney smiled, faint and patronizing. "On what grounds?" he asked, already confident he'd walk through me. I didn't give him an argument. "Not yet. I want to wait until the last person arrives," I said. The judge blinked once. "The last person?" he repeated. I nodded. "Yes, Your Honor." My sister let out a small laugh that wasn't humor. "This is ridiculous," she said. "There is no one else." My father finally turned his head slightly toward me, us the way he used to when I was a teenager, and he wanted to remind me I was embarrassing the family. "You always do this," he muttered, just loud enough. The judge leaned back and adjusted his glasses. "Ms. Vale," he said, "this is probate court, not a stage. If you have an objection, it needs to be legal." "It is legal," I said calmly. "But it isn't mine to explain." My sister's attorney stepped closer, voice smooth. "Your Honor," he said, "we're requesting emergency appointment because Ms. Vale has been uncooperative. There are assets that need protection, and my client is the responsible party." Responsible. That word was always used like a weapon in my family. It meant, give us control, and stop asking questions. My mother sighed softly as if she was suffering from my immaturity. "She's grieving," she said to the judge. She doesn't understand how these things work." My sister's eyes stayed on me, bright and cold. "I'm just trying to keep everything from falling apart," she said. "Grandpa would want it handled properly." I stared at her and thought about how quickly she'd found a lawyer, how fast the petition had appeared, how rehearsed my parents looked sitting behind her like backup singers. The judge turned a page in the case file. "This petition requests full authority over the estate," he said. "It alleges the respondent is unfit to participate and may interfere." My sister's attorney nodded. "Correct." "And you're asking me to grant that today?" the judge said. "Yes, Your Honor," the attorney replied. "Effective immediately." The judge looked at me again. "Ms. Vale," he said, "what is your objection?" I kept my posture still. My objection is that they're asking you to act without the full record," I said. My sister laughed again, sharper. "There is no hidden record," she snapped. "He's dead. This is what happens." The judge's expression didn't change, but his patience thinned. "Ms. Vale," he said to my sister, "you will not speak out of turn." My father's lips pressed tighter. My mother's eyes narrowed like she hated being corrected. My sister's attorney tried to salvage the moment with politeness. "Your Honor, if Ms. Vale wants to delay, we object. The estate can't wait." I didn't look at him, I looked at the judge. "It won't be a delay," I said. "It'll be minutes." The judge exhaled once and glanced toward the courtroom doors, clearly deciding whether to entertain me. "Who are we waiting for?" he asked. I answered with the simplest truth I could say out loud. The person who actually controls the inheritance, I said. My sister's face tightened for the first time. That's me, she said automatically, and then caught herself when the judge's eyes flicked her way. The judge leaned forward slightly. Ms. Vale, he said to me, if this is a tactic. It isn't, I replied. I'm asking you to let the record arrive before you sign anything. A beat of silence. Then the courtroom doors opened. Not a dramatic swing. Just a clean, controlled push, like someone with purpose. A man stepped inside wearing a black suit so plain it looked like a uniform. No flashy tie. No jewelry. Just an envelope in his hand and a calm expression like he didn't care who in this room had money. He walked straight to the clerk's desk without looking at my parents or my sister. He held up the envelope, spoke clearly, and said my name. Ms. Vale? The judge blinked, reached for his glasses again, and watched the envelope like it didn't belong in his courtroom. The man in the black suit didn't raise his voice. He didn't explain himself. He simply placed the envelope on the clerk's desk with one hand and said, "This is for the court. From the trustee." The judge took the envelope, read the sender line, and his mouth moved as if he'd spoken before he meant to. "That can't be," he whispered. The judge didn't open the envelope like it was routine mail. He held it between two fingers, turned it once, and looked at the return address again as if the ink might change if he stared hard enough. Then he tore it open. No flourish, and just a clean rip, like he wanted the paper to stop pretending it mattered more than what was inside. The courtroom stayed so quiet I could hear my sister's attorney shift his weight. The judge pulled out a single folded document first. Thick stock. Embossed seal in the corner. A signature block that looked too formal for the way my family had been treating this, like a family meeting. He scanned the top line. His jaw tightened. Then he read the sender out loud. Hawthorne National Bank. Trust Department. My sister's face flickered, just for a second, before she rebuilt her composure. She'd built her entire life on being the person who handled money. Hearing a bank named in open court should have made her look powerful. Instead, it made her look caught. The judge kept reading. "This is a notice of trust administration," he said. It states the decedent's assets were placed into a revocable trust, and that the trust became irrevocable upon death. My sister's attorney stood quickly. "Your Honor, we're in probate." The judge didn't even look up. "Sit down," he said. He turned one page. "And this," he added, voice flatter, "is a certification of trust identifying the trustee." He paused again, like the next line offended his sense of how lawsuits are supposed to work. Then he read it. "Successor trustee. Hawthorne National Bank, Trust Department." My parents stiffened. Because they'd been aiming for control. A bank doesn't care about control the way families do. A bank cares about documents, conditions, and risk. My sister's attorney tried to recover with confidence. "Your Honor, even if there is a trust, probate still has jurisdiction over the estate." The judge finally looked up. "Counsel," he said, "your motion requested all of the inheritance effective immediately." He tapped the paper once with his finger. "This trust certification states in plain language that the probate estate is minimal and the bulk of assets are held in trust." He turned to the clerk. "Mark this as received," he said. Then he looked at my sister. Not as a sister, not as family, like a petitioner who had just tried to take something she didn't control. "Ms. Vale," he said to her, "did you know your grandfather established a trust with a corporate trustee?" My sister lifted her chin. "He was influenced," she said. He didn't understand what he was signing." The judge didn't argue with her feelings. He held up the next page. This notice includes a copy of the trust's execution affidavit and the list of witnesses," he said. "It also includes an attorney certification that the decedent signed with full capacity." My father's mouth tightened. My mother's eyes narrowed like she was trying to choose a new angle. And then the judge hit the line that made him whisper that can't be in the first place. He read it slowly so no one could later claim they misunderstood. "No contest clause triggered." Any beneficiary who petitions to seize trust assets contrary to terms forfeits their distribution. My sister's attorney's face drained. My sister's eyes widened a fraction, then narrowed, like she was trying to bully the paper into backing down. My mother's hands unclasped for the first time. The judge looked up. "Counsel," he said to my sister's attorney, "you filed a motion for immediate transfer of all inheritance to your client." "Yes, Your Honor," the attorney said carefully. "You understand," the judge replied, "that if this clause is enforceable, the act of filing your motion may have already caused forfeiture." The attorney swallowed. "Your Honor, we dispute the validity." The judge cut him off. "You can dispute it," he said, "but you don't get to pretend it isn't there." Then he looked at me again. "Ms. Vale," he said, "you asked to wait for the last person to arrive. Was this the person?" "Yes," I said. My voice stayed level even though my pulse had climbed into my throat. "The trust department is the trustee. They control distribution." The man in the black suit, still standing near the clerk like he belonged to procedure, spoke for the first time. "Your Honor," he said, "I calm and precise, I'm not here to argue, I'm here to deliver notice and confirm the trustee's position." The judge gestured once. "State it," he said. The man didn't look at my parents. He didn't look at my sister, he looked at the judge. "The trustee does not recognize the petitioner's request," he said. "The trustee will not distribute assets to anyone based on today's motion. The trustee will administer per the trust terms and is requesting the court dismiss any attempt to seize trust-controlled assets through probate." My sister snapped, "You can't just—" The judge raised his hand. "Ms. Vale," he said sharply, "you will not speak out of turn." My sister shut her mouth but her breathing changed. Faster now, thinner. Her attorney stood again trying to salvage ground. "Your Honor, at minimum, we move to compel production of the full trust," he said. "We question whether my client was improperly removed or whether there is undue influence by the respondent." The judge's eyes didn't soften. "Undue influence is a serious allegation," he said. "And you just watched audio evidence of attempted coercion aimed at the decedent, which did not come from the respondent." My father's jaw ticked. The judge turned to the man in black again. "Has the trustee provided the trust instrument to counsel?" he asked. "Yes," the man answered. "A complete copy was delivered to both sides yesterday via certified service." My mother's head snapped toward my sister's attorney like a whip. Yesterday, meaning they'd known. Or should have known, meaning they'd filed anyway. The judge let that fact sit in the room for a beat, then looked at my sister with something close to disgust. "Ms. Vale," he said, "did you receive the trust documents yesterday?" My sister's lips parted, and for the first time she looked less like an executive and more like someone cornered. She started. Her attorney cut in fast. "Your Honor, we received a packet but—" The judge interrupted him. "Counsel," he said, "if you received a packet containing a no contest clause and still filed a motion demanding all inheritance effective immediately, I want you to understand what that looks like to this court." The attorney went still. The judge turned to the clerk. "Set a hearing," he said, "on standing and sanctions, and I want the trustee's letter entered into the record." Then he looked directly at my sister. "And Ms. Vale," he added, voice colder now, "if you are a named beneficiary and you triggered forfeiture, today may have cost you more than you intended." My sister's face tightened into something ugly. Her eyes cut to me, and the hatred there wasn't about money. It was about the fact that the institution she thought would crown her had just marked her as a risk. Then she did what she always did when she couldn't win with paperwork. She tried to win with a new story. "Your Honor," she said suddenly, voice loud, turning toward the bench with practiced urgency, "I need to put something on the record." The judge's eyes narrowed. "What?" he said. "Exactly?" My sister looked straight at me and said, the one word my parents had been saving like a bullet. Elder abuse. And the judge's expression changed, not because he believed her, but because now the court had to decide whether she had proof or whether she was about to hang herself with another false allegation. Elder abuse. My sister repeated, louder. Like volume could turn accusation into evidence. My mother's face softened instantly into performance grief. My father leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowing, like this was the plan they'd been waiting to deploy. Her attorney stood beside her as if he'd been handed an emergency exit. Your Honor, he said, we request an immediate inquiry. The respondent isolated the decedent, controlled access, and coerced him into signing documents that benefit her. The judge didn't react like a daytime TV audience. He reacted like a judge. He leaned forward and said, Counsel, those are serious allegations. What evidence do you have today? My sister didn't blink. Witnesses? She said, and she gestured behind her. Two relatives stood awkwardly near the back rows like they'd been drafted. My aunt and a cousin I barely spoke to. Their faces were tense, eyes sliding away from mine. My mother nodded encouragingly at them like she was coaching them silently. The judge looked at them, unimpressed. Witnesses can testify, he said. But I want something concrete. Medical reports, prior complaints, police reports, a PS involvement. Anything. My sister's jaw tightened. He didn't want to embarrass the family, she said quickly. He was scared. The judge's expression stayed flat. Then explain why he called emergency services himself, he said. Silence. My sister tried to pivot. He was confused, she said. He didn't know what he was doing. The judge glanced down at the bank's envelope again. This trust was executed with a capacity affidavit and witnesses, he said. That is not confusion. That is formalized intent. My father's attorney rose, voice smooth. Your Honor, we also have evidence the respondent had access to accounts and controlled communications. Elliot stood immediately. Objection, he said. This is argument without foundation. The judge held up a hand. Counsel, he said to my sister's attorney. Do you have that evidence here? My sister's attorney hesitated a fraction. Then he did what attorneys do when they have a narrative, but not the record. We would request discovery, he said. The judge's eyes hardened. Discovery is not a fishing license, he replied. You do not accuse someone of elder abuse in open court as a strategy to seize assets held in trust. My sister's face flushed. It's not a strategy, she snapped. The judge leaned back. Then bring evidence, he said. Not theatrical relatives. My mother's voice trembled. Practiced. Your Honor, she said. She kept us away. She made him hate us. The judge looked at her once. Ma'am, he said, this is not family therapy. Then he turned his attention to the one person in the room who had no emotional stake, just fiduciary responsibility. He addressed the man in black. Sir, he said, does the trustee have any documentation of concerns regarding undue influence or abuse? The man didn't hesitate. No, Your Honor, he said. The trustee conducted standard intake. The decedent met privately with counsel. He confirmed his intent. The trustee received a letter of instruction and supporting materials. The judge's gaze sharpened. Supporting materials? He asked. Yes, the man replied. A log and a statement. The decedent wanted them preserved. My sister's head snapped up. What statement? She demanded. The judge didn't look at her. Provide it, he told the man. The man reached into a second envelope he'd been holding, one I hadn't noticed because it was thinner and unmarked, and handed it to the clerk. The clerk passed it to the judge. The judge opened it and pulled out a single-page letter. He read silently for several seconds, eyes moving with careful attention. Then he looked up at me. Not with warmth. With the weight of something he understood. Miss Vale, he said. Did you know your grandfather prepared a written statement, anticipating today's allegations? Yes, I said quietly. He told me he did, but I didn't know what he wrote. My sister's breathing changed. Her nails dug into the counsel table. The judge looked at the top of the letter. Then he read the first line aloud. If you are reading this in court, it means my son and his family tried to take my estate by accusing my granddaughter. My mother made a sound like she'd been stabbed. My father's face went rigid. My sister's attorney sat down slowly, as if he'd realized he was standing on a trap door. The judge continued reading, not all of it, just enough to make the record undeniable. He read that my grandfather had asked me to move in after his fall. He read that he had met with counsel alone. He read that he had created the trust because he feared pressure tactics and rapid signature demands. Then the judge reached the line that seemed to make his lips press together. He read it once silently, then he read it out loud. On the night I called emergency services, my son brought a mobile notary to my home to obtain new signatures. I refused. I asked for witnesses. If they call this elder abuse, they are projecting their own conduct. The courtroom stayed dead quiet. Not a whisper. Not a cough. My sister sat very still and I watched her eyes flicker like she was trying to find a way to survive the record. My father's attorney stood slowly, voice cautious now. Your Honor, he said. We object to hearsay. The judge cut him off. It's a statement of intent from the decedent offered to show his state of mind, he said. And it's consistent with the dispatch audio. He held the letter up slightly. This court is not going to entertain a last-minute elder abuse allegation used to seize assets held by a corporate trustee, he said, each word measured. If you want to file a petition with evidence, you may do so, but not today, not like this. My sister's attorney swallowed. Your Honor, he said, we'd like to withdraw the motion. The judge's gaze stayed cold. You can't withdraw consequences, he replied. But you can stop digging. He turned to the clerk. Dismiss the motion, he said, and set an order to show cause hearing regarding sanctions for the filing and the false assertions made today. My mother's face went pale. My father's jaw clenched. My sister's mask finally cracked. So she gets everything? She snapped. The judge didn't flinch. The trust gets administered per the terms, he said. And yes, Ms. Vale's petition to seize all inheritance effective immediately is denied. My sister's hands shook now. She tried to hide it by gripping the edge of the table. Thus the man in black spoke again, calm like a machine stating the next step. The trustee will suspend any distributions to parties who triggered the no contest clause until further review, he said. We will follow the trust language exactly. My sister's head snapped toward him. Suspend? She hissed. No, that's... He didn't argue. That is, he said simply. The judge leaned forward and said the last sentence my sister did not expect to hear. Ms. Vale, he said, you walked into this courtroom acting like it was already yours. Now you will leave with nothing decided in your favor today, and you will answer for the way you tried to obtain it. My sister's eyes turned to me again, full of hatred and humiliation. Then she whispered, barely audible. This isn't over. And that's when the bailiff stepped in close. Quiet, unprofessional, and spoke to the judge in a low tone. The judge's expression changed slightly as he listened. He nodded once. Then he looked directly at my father. Mr. Vale, he said. Remain seated. My father froze. Why? He asked. The judge's voice stayed flat. Because, he said, I've just been informed there's a deputy in the hallway with paperwork for you and it isn't from this court. My father's face tightened. The courtroom doors opened again. And a uniformed deputy walked in holding a document with a bold header across the top. I couldn't read it from my seat. But I saw my father's face turn gray as the deputy said, Sir, you've been served. My father didn't stand. He didn't demand respect. He just stared at the deputy like the badge had suddenly become heavier than his money. "What is this?" he asked, voice tight. The deputy didn't play games. He held the packet out. "Service of process," he said. "You can accept it here or in the hallway." My father's attorney leaned toward him and whispered something urgent. My father ignored it and snatched the papers, flipping the first page with shaking fingers. His eyes moved across the header. Then he froze. Because this wasn't probate. This was criminal. The judge watched him, red, expression flat. "Mr. Vale," he said, "this court has nothing to do with that paperwork. But I will remind you, you are still under oath from earlier testimony." My father swallowed. "Your Honor," he said, forcing calm, "this is harassment. My family is being targeted because my daughter—" The judge cut him off. "Stop," he said. "Your daughter is not the one who called emergency services to report a coercion attempt. Your daughter is not the one who filed a false motion in this court. Your daughter is not the one who attempted to seize trust assets held by a corporate fiduciary." My mother's mouth tightened. "We were trying to protect the family," she whispered. The judge didn't soften. "Then you protected it into a referral," he said. The deputy shifted his stance slightly and I realized he hadn't come alone. 2 more uniforms stood near the doors. Quiet. Not approaching. Just present in the way law enforcement gets present when they expect people to run or explode. My sister's attorney cleared his throat. "Your Honor," he said carefully, "we would request a brief recess to confer with our clients." The judge looked at him like he was exhausted by the idea of more talking. "You can confer," he said. "But this motion is dismissed. The trustee will administer the trust, and I will see counsel back for the order to show cause hearing." He picked up his pen, already turning away from them. Then he stopped and looked back once, like he'd remembered something important. "One more thing," he said. The room stilled again. He addressed the man in the black suit. "Sir," he said, "does the trustee request any protective order?" "Yes, Your Honor," the man replied immediately. "Given the attempted interference, the trustee requests an order prohibiting the petitioners from contacting financial institutions, custodians, or third parties in an attempt to access trust assets and prohibiting harassment of the primary beneficiary." My sister's head snapped up. "Harassment?" she scoffed. The judge's eyes moved to her. "Ms. Vale," he said, "you just accused someone of elder abuse with no evidence in open court. You are not in a position to scoff." He looked back at the trustee's representative. "Granted," he said. "Draft it. I'll sign today." My mother's face strayed. "You can't keep us from our own daughter," she whispered, voice shaking. The judge's voice stayed flat. "You can keep yourselves from committing misconduct," he replied. Elliot leaned toward me and murmured, "This is the cleanest order we could have hoped for." I nodded once, but my eyes stayed on my parents. Because now my father had the criminal paperwork in his hands, and I could see the calculation changing behind his eyes. Not remorse. Damage control. The judge adjourned. "Court is recessed," he said. The moment the gavel hit, my mother lunged toward me in the aisle, not physically, but close enough that the air changed. "You did this," she hissed. "You ruined your father." I didn't flinch. "He ruined himself," I said quietly. Alyssa stepped in too, her voice a tight whisper, eyes wild. "You're going to lose everything," she said. "I'll make sure you do." I looked at her and kept my voice calm. "You already tried," I said. And the trustee didn't even have to raise its voice. My sister's face twisted. "You think you're safe because a bank sent a suit?" she spat. I leaned in slightly, close enough for her to hear me over the hallway noise. "I think I'm safe because Grandpa planned," I said. "And because you can't bully a record." Her lips parted. And I saw the moment she wanted to scream. Instead she did something colder. She turned her phone face down like she'd just sent something she didn't want anyone to see. Elliot noticed it too. His gaze flicked to her hands, then to me. "Don't engage," he murmured. "We're leaving." We walked out through the side exit. The courthouse air outside was sharp and bright, like it didn't care what families did to each other inside. At the curb, Elliot stopped and looked me in the eyes. "Here's the concrete ending you wanted," he said quietly. "The trust is controlling everything. The petition is dismissed. The no contest clause is triggered and will be enforced. Your parents don't get access, and the court just signed an order preventing interference." I nodded. "And your sister?" I asked. Elliot's mouth tightened. "If she's a named beneficiary, she likely forfeited today," he said. "That's what her lawyer is realizing right now." We stood there for a moment, just breathing. Then Elliot's phone buzzed, and he checked it. And his expression changed the same way it had at the airport when the officer's tone shifted. "What?" I asked. Elliot held the screen up. "A notification, official, short. Hawthorne National Bank Trust Department. Security alert. Attempted access blocked." My stomach went cold. Because the hearing was over, the order was signed, and someone was still trying to touch the money. Elliot's voice went quiet. "They're doing it right now," he said. I stared at the alert. And in that moment, I understood. My sister hadn't turned her phone face down to stop herself from screaming. She'd turned it face down because she was moving. Elliot didn't waste a second. He called the trust department while we were still standing at the curb. I had the courthouse doors behind us and my parents, somewhere inside, trying to pretend they hadn't just been humiliated. A woman answered with the kind of steady, rehearsed calm you hear from people whose job is to prevent disasters. "Hawthorne Trust," she said. "This line is recorded. How may I help you?" "This is Elliot Lane," he replied. "Counsel for Marine Bail. I just received a security alert. Attempted access blocked. I need details." There was a brief pause and the sound of keys tapping. Then the woman's tone sharpened slightly. "Not panic, procedure." "Yes," she said. An attempted login was made to the beneficiary portal. It failed multi-factor authentication. Immediately after that, there was an attempt to change the contact phone number on file. My mouth went dry. "Change it to whose?" I asked. The trust officer didn't answer me directly. She asked Elliot, "Are you authorizing me to disclose the attempted change request data to your client?" "Yes," Elliot said instantly. The trust officer continued. "The attempted phone number change request was submitted from a device associated with the petitioner, Alyssa Vale." I closed my eyes for half a second, because I could picture it perfectly. Or her flipping her phone face down in the courtroom, like she was hiding shame, when in reality she was hiding action. Elliot's voice stayed calm. "Did she authenticate?" he asked. "No," the trust officer replied. "The system blocked the request. A manual flag was placed. Distribution status is now set to hold, fraud risk, pending review." Elliot let out a slow breath. "Good," he said. "Freeze all changes. No portal contact changes. No phone number changes, no email changes, no address updates without verified in-person identification." "Already done," she replied. "And a report has been generated." Elliot's jaw tightened. "Send that report to my office," he said. "And note, there's an active court order issued today prohibiting interference." "Understood," she answered. "We have the court order on file. The trustee will comply." The call ended, and the quiet afterward felt sharp. Elliot looked at me. "That alert?" he said. "It's exactly why corporate trustees exist. They don't get bullied. They don't get guilt-tripped. They log and block." I nodded slowly. "So she tried to get in," I said. "And failed." "Yes," he replied. "And she just created a record that will follow her into sanctions." We drove straight to Elliot's office, not for drama, I'm but for one reason, to lock down everything while my family was still spinning. Elliot had me sign a single-page instruction. All trust communications routed through counsel, no direct contact, accepted from family members, and any attempted changes treated as fraud. Then he forwarded the bank's security report to the judge's clerk with a note. Attempted access blocked within minutes of court recess. No threats. No speeches. Just a timestamp. An hour later, Elliot's assistant came in and said, "The trustee rep called back." The man in the black suit, Hawthorne's representative, appeared on a video call. Same calm face. Same plain suit like a uniform. "Ms. Vale," he said, "I want to make something very clear. I didn't speak. I let him. The trust will distribute only according to the trust terms," he continued. There will be no exceptions due to family pressure. There will be no temporary transfers. There will be no advances." He glanced down at a note, then back up. "And due to today's petition and the attempted portal interference, the trustee has formally determined that Alyssa Vale triggered the no contest clause. Her distribution is now forfeited pending court confirmation." My chest tightened. Part relief? Part disbelief. Elliot asked, "And the parents?" The trustee rep's face didn't change. "Grant and Linda Vale's contingent distributions are under review," he said. "Given their participation in the petition and coordinated behavior, the trustee is treating their involvement as interference." He paused, then added, "We will file a declaration with the court." That was the moment it felt finished. Not because it was emotionally satisfying, because it was administratively final. 2 weeks later, the court held the sanctions hearing. My sister's attorney didn't make eye contact with anyone. He stood up, cleared his throat, and said, "Your Honor, we withdraw all contested claims and apologize to the court." The judge didn't smile. He didn't accept the apology like it erased the attempt. He imposed sanctions for the bad faith filing, ordered my sister to pay a portion of attorney's fees, and most importantly, entered an order acknowledging the trustee's enforcement of the no contest clause. Then he addressed my parents directly. "Your daughter did not take anything," he said. "Your father's documents took control away from you and you responded with manipulation. This court will not participate in that." My mother cried in a way that sounded real for the first time. Not grief, but loss of control. My father didn't cry. He just stared at the floor like he was looking for a loophole. There wasn't one. Within the month, Hawthorne National Bank completed the first formal distribution under the trust terms. The house remained protected by title. The remaining assets were administered with receipts, confirmations, and a paper trail my family could never rewrite. And as for my sister, her wealth didn't protect her from a forfeiture clause she'd ignored because she assumed courts exist to reward confidence. They don't. Courts reward records. On the night the final confirmation email came through, I sat at my kitchen table and opened the same folder my grandfather had prepared years before. Not to relive the pain. To remember the lesson. When people try to erase you with a story, you don't fight story with story, you fight story with proof. 3 weeks after the hearing, the court entered the trustee's declaration into the record. Hawthorne locked the trust completely, no changes without in-person verification. My sister's forfeiture was confirmed under the no contest clause. My parents' requested family settlement was denied, and the sanctions order required them to reimburse legal fees tied to the false filing. Within 30 days, the trustee executed the first distribution exactly as written, and the deeded property stayed protected outside probate. No more motions. No more emergencies. Just the record, finalized. What did you think of the ending? Was it satisfying or would you have handled it differently? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, leave a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. See you in the next video.